So now let's go back to my forms and let's try to create a new forms. When you click on new form, it is going to take you to this page where you can see the various types of form you can create. You can decide to start with a blank form if you want, and it is going to ask you to start from scratch, and you can add in your form name. You can also decide to add it as a standard type or a card type, and the difference between the standard and the card type is that the standard is going to have multiple fields on a page, while the card type is only going to have one question for each page. So you know all those type of forms that come when you add in a question. When a question comes on a page, then it clicks on next to go to the next question, on just like it's just a question for each page. So that is what the card is, and the standard is just like the regular form where there are multiple fields on a page. So when you pick on whichever one you want, you can click on create form, and it's going to take you to the page where you can create your form. You can also try in their AI forms, add in a prompt, and when you add in a prompt, it's going to create that form for you. You can also use all of their sample form prompt in here. As you can see, we have various prompts that we can use over here. You have the event registration, you have the one for contact us form, you have the one for job application. You can pick whichever one you feel is going to work for you, and you can add that in. When you add in the prompt, you can decide the tone that you want this form to be in. You can decide that you want it to be professional, or you want it to be conversational, or whichever one you want, you can actually use it. And after you do that, you can click on generate form, and it's going to generate your form for you. And as you can see, the AI form is loading, and it's going to bring in all of the fields that you are going to need for the particular prompt that you have added. Since we added in a contact us form, it has added all of this information, or it has added all of those fields, and you can decide to go ahead and edit whatever it is you want to edit by clicking on create form, and it's going to also create that form for you. So when you click on create form, it's going to create that form, and you can adjust this fields and change whatever it is you want to change. And after that, you go over to, so that is for AI forms. And now let's go to the form templates, and when you click on form template, it is going to take you to the pre-designed page that has been done by Zoho Forms. So Zoho Forms are various templates that have been created by them, and you can decide to pick whichever one you want. And they actually have lots and lots and lots of options. You can decide to pick the registration form if you want. You can pick for real estate, you can pick for medicine, for education, for non-profit. They have lots of forms actually. They have the one for Thanksgiving, they have the one for working forms, for contractors, and for RSVP. You can also create a form for that. If you have a wedding and you want to invite people through a form, you can do that. If you have Christmas party, you can invite people with that form. If you have a birthday party, you can use it also. Okay, so when you pick whichever form it is you want to create, you can decide to preview it first to see how it is going to look like. And when you feel you're okay with it and you want to use the template, you can click on use form, and it's going to take you to the editor page where you can edit this form. So after that, you can go to the next one. And the next one is the CRM forms, and the CRM forms is used to create a form for particular modules in Zoho CRM. You know how Zoho CRM and Zoho Forms are connected. You can decide to create a form that is going to be mapped to a particular module in Zoho CRM. So you can decide to create forms for the leads module, or forms for the contacts module, or forms for even the custom module you have created. And I've added a video in here. You can check it up here. I created a video where you can create a custom module from scratch, and that is going to give you an idea of how creating a custom module from scratch works. So after you do that, you can decide to pick the organization that you want to add this form for, and as you can see, it has mapped out the organization, and you can decide to pick whatever module it is you want to create this form for. You can decide to create the form for the leads module, or for the contact module, or for the deal module. You can pick whichever one works for you. And after doing that, let's pick for leads. And when you pick for leads, you can also decide the layout you want to use. So if you have different layouts in your Zoho CRM, you can pick this the layout you want to use for this particular form. And as you can see, I have only the standard, so I'm just going to pick the standard layout. And when I click on next, it is going to generate all of the fields that it can find in my Zoho CRM account. And as you can see, these are all of the fields in my lead module in Zoho CRM, and now it is bringing all of those fields in Zoho Forms. So you can decide to create a form that is going to have all of this field, or you can decide to select which one you want to add to the form. And when you add all of this fields, you can click on next, or you can even decide that you want to add all of these fields in here, and we have 31 fields, and you can click on next. And when you click on next, it is going to help you map all of your Zoho Forms. It is going to map all of your Zoho CRM fields to your Zoho Form field. And as you can see, the company has been mapped with company, the last name has been mapped with last name, and the first name has been mapped with first name also, and so on onto the end. And you can also decide to re-edit this if you want, and you can also change the field type also. So let's imagine that you want to change this from single line to maybe an email. You can also do that. You can change to number, and for the multi-line, you can decide to make it a single line if you want, or you can decide to make it a number. So you have various options that you can change all of those fields for. Instead of using the multi-line and the single line, you can decide to change it to whatever it is. For instance, for the zip code, instead of using a single line, you can decide that you want to use a number field. Since zip codes are in numbers, you can just decide to use the number field. And for country, you can leave it as single line. And for the Skype ID, since it's an ID, then we can use a number also. We can also decide to change, you can decide to change this however you seem fit. And after you are done, you click on next, and it is going to ask you to put in your form title. And when you put in your form title, you can name it in lead form or whatever it is you want to name it. And you can decide if you want the form type to be in standard type or the card type. And after you pick the type that you want, you click on create form, and your form will be created. The last option, which is the PDF to form, the PDF to form just allows you to download or to upload a PDF into Zoho Forms here, and the PDF is going to have all of the questions you want to add to the form. Then it's going to generate that form for you. So let's imagine that you have a PDF or you have an image that you want to replicate. You can just get the image of the form, or you can get the PDF of the question, and you can just bring the form in here, and Zoho Forms is going to help you create that kind of form. And that is actually amazing, because you can get a sample somewhere and you just bring in the image here, and it is going to create that form for you. And that is for PDF to forms. And now for the purpose of this tutorial, we are going to be using the blank form, and we are using the blank form because I want to be able to extend each of the field from the beginning. So when you click on blank form, like I said, it's going to ask you for the form name, and put whatever you want for the form name. So let's say the form name, so we are naming this form YouTube tutorial form, and we can decide to make this in the standard format or in the card format. And remember that the card format is just displaying one field per page, while the standard format displays multiple fields on a page. So let's choose the standard format, and you can click on create. And now it is going to take you to the page where you can start adding in all of your fields. And this is the form builder, and as you can see, the first one we have is the grid menu. Okay, so let's call all of this menu, and the first menu is the grid menu. And as you can see, we have the 1-column grid, and for the 1-column grid, you can decide to add in a question, or you can decide to add in a field, but it is going to be on a column. You can also add a 2-column grid if you want, and the 2-column grid is going to add multiple questions side by side, 2 questions side by side. So you can also decide to add 3-column grid if you want, and 3-column grid is just going to add all of those questions side by side, 3 questions in a column side by side. And after this, you can decide to drag in your name, your address, and your phone and your email. So after putting in all of this, you can decide to make this edit. You can name this whatever you want. You can decide to hide it, or you can decide to show it. You can decide to do whatever you want, and you click on save. And yeah, And let's go to the next one. Let me delete this. And that is for the grid. Now let's go to the basic info menu. And when you get to the basic info menu, you are going to see the part where you can add in the name. You can add in the name, the first name and the last name. You can also decide to click on this setting jar, and you can decide to add in or change this name however you want. You can decide to change it to patient name, or you can decide to change it to student name, whatever it is you want to add. You can also decide to add in some instructions like please fill in your name and please fill in your full name, or whatever you want to add. You can decide to make this small or large or medium. And for the title, for the name element, you can decide to add in the title, and you can decide to add in the title. And when you click on this I button here, yeah, the title is going to show up. You can also decide that you want to collect their middle name, and you click on the I button also, and it is going to show up the middle name. You can also decide to drag in the middle name into the middle so that the first name comes first, then the middle name and the last name. Or you can also decide to drag in the last name first if you want. You can arrange it however you want, however you seem fit. And I do not want the middle name. I'm just going to unsee this. And for this, you can make this mandatory if you want. You can decide to make the title mandatory, or make the first name and the last name mandatory, or just leave the title the way it is. You can also decide to add various other titles if you want. So apart from Mr., Mrs. and Miss, you can decide to add whichever one you want. And you can also decide to remove by clicking on this red button to remove whichever option you do not want. So you can decide to make the input type. That means that means what people can type into the box for the name. You can decide to make it any character, or you can decide that you only want them to be able to type in letters only, or you can decide to make them type letters and numbers. But since we are using for name, let's say letters only. And you can decide to also configure your placeholder, and you can add a placeholder for each of your text, for each of your field. And you can decide to add a placeholder like please fill in your first name here, and please fill in your last name here, and please fill in your title here. And when you put all of this placeholder, you can click on done, and that will be done. And you can decide to hide your field if you want. If you do not want the field to show up, you can decide to hide it. And you can decide to disable this field if you do not want people to be able to fill in anything into that field. So when you click on disable field, they are not going to be able to fill in the field, and we do not want that, so we remove that. And you can also mark as personal if you want, so that you and only those who you have decided can have access to this form. And you can also encrypt it if you want. And to encrypt this is going to allow you to add a code to a form, so that only you can be able to see that particular field, because we do not want any other person to see that particular field. We can encrypt it, and that means it is a personal information, and you do not want all of your users to see the field. And after that, after you have done all of this, you can click on save. And when you click on save, all of your settings has been done. You can also decide that you want to add in the address, and when you drag in your address in here, you can put it in here, and you can use the jar button over here, and you can decide to change the name of the address if you want. And for the instruction, you can decide to add in the instruction for the address, like put in your work address, or put in your home address, or whatever it is you want to add. You can do that. You can also decide to make some of these fields mandatory if you want. Just click on the ones you want to make mandatory, like maybe only their street address, or you want to know their country only. You can decide to make the country mandatory. And for the street address, you can decide to unsee this, and that means it is not going to show up in this address form. And you can also decide that you do not want people to see the line too, so you can also take that off from the form. And you can decide you do not want people to fill in their city, then you can remove that. You can also click on it for it to show up in the form. And you can also decide that you want to show the form element label, and that means you can be able to see each label for each address field. And you can also decide to auto fill the address from Zoho Maps or Google Maps. You have to configure that to work. And you can also decide that you want to auto generate the state list, or you can decide to add in a text input. So let's say we want to use the state or the region or the province. It's going to auto generate the states according to the country you pick. So let's say that you want to add in let's say you want to add in USA, then it is going to auto generate all of the states in USA. So you can decide to add this as a text field so that they can fill in whatever they want, or you can also generate the states, and when you click on also generate the states, it is going to show all of the states in the particular country that they have picked. You can also decide to allow all of the countries in the world, or you can also decide to add only selected few countries. So that means people from other countries will not be able to fill in this form. So you can decide to unselect all and pick only the countries you want to add into this form. So that means other people from other countries that are not picked will not be able to fill in this form. You can also click on this to select all of the states, and when you do that, you can click on done, and you can also click on your default settings, your default country, sorry. So for the default country, you can decide to set it to a particular country, or when they come into that form, you can decide to set it to maybe United States, or you can decide to set it to the UK or Nigeria, or you can also decide that you want the country to be mapped by the IP location. So Zoho Forms is going to check the IP location of the particular device that they're using, and it's going to be able to track in the location by using the IP address, and that is going to be added. And for the place order test, you can decide to configure a place order test for each of this field. You can say for the street address, you can say something like please add in your street address, and you can say for the city, you can say what is your city. You can just add whatever place order works for you, and when you are done, you click on done, and the next one is to hide the field or to disable the field. You can also do that. You can mark as personal, and you can also encrypt. When you are done with all of these and you make sure all the settings are okay, you click on save, and when you click on save, your address field will be saved. The next one is to drag in your phone field, and for the phone field, you can go over to the settings also to make some adjustments. You can decide to make the field format to be international, or you can make it in a particular format. So for this format is for, I think, US numbers, yeah, or you can just decide to make it international so people from anywhere can fill in the type of phone number that you are using. And you can also decide to make this small or large or medium. You can also decide to add in a placeholder text like please fill in your phone number, or please fill in your work number, whichever one works for you. You can also decide to add in an over text so that when people over on that field, they can be able to see whatever text you have added in. You can also decide to include country code, and this is good so you can be able to get whatever country they are coming from. So for the country code, you can say that you want to allow all countries, or you can decide that you only want to allow selected few countries. So you can pick whatever country you want to allow, and when you click on the countries, you will be able to click on done, and by default all of the countries are actually listed, but you can just click on done, and it is going to add all of the countries in here. And you can also make the default country by IP address, or you can make a default country by picking any of these countries in here. So let's say you are sending this form particularly to students in USA or students in Nigeria. You can decide to make this, you can decide to pick Nigeria for this, or you can decide to pick USA for this, and that means when they are coming into this form, the country code that is going to be showing up will be USA, but they can be able to change it also. You can also decide to add in an initial value, and the initial value is going to show up on the form field when they come into the form. At first it's going to show that initial value, but they can be able to remove it and edit it if they want that. And also for the range, you can decide that you want the minimum of 5 numbers, and you want the maximum of maximum of 15 numbers in the phone number page. So that means they cannot put a number below 5, and they cannot put a number above 5. And this is good if you want them to be able to put in the right phone number for a particular country. So we all know that there are some countries that have 11 digits numbers. You can make sure that the maximum they can put is 11 digits, because anything above 11 digits is already a wrong number. So you want to make sure to set this up to whatever country you are targeting this form to, or you can just decide to use something at a maximum so that people from different countries can be be able to put in their number. So after you've done this, you can click on mandatory to make this mandatory, and you can click on no duplicates, and you can click on allow only numbers. And when you click on allow only numbers, it's going to allow those people filling in the form to only put numbers, so they cannot put letters. And you can also decide to add in a phone input confirmation, so for them to be able to confirm this number, you can also allow that. You can also do that. You can also allow them to do the OTP verification, but to do that you will need to connect your SMS or your WhatsApp business. And for the hide field, you can decide to hide this field if you want, or you can decide to disable this field if you want. So let's remove this. Yeah, so when you are done with all of the settings over here, you click on save and your form will be saved. The next one is the email, and when you drag in your email over here, as you can see, this email has been dragged, and you click on the gear button here, and you can change this to whatever you want. You can name this your work email, you can name this your home email, or whatever it is you want to use. You can also add in some instructions for them to fill in the form. You can also add the field size to be small, to be medium, or to be large, whichever one works for you. And you can also add a placeover text and a hover text and an initial value, and you can make this character limit to be 25 to 55 maximum. So that means they cannot be able to put more than 255 words for their email. And you can make this mandatory if you want. Yeah, it's good to make the email mandatory because we need to get their email. And you can also decide not to get any duplicates, and you can include email confirmation if you want. So that means they can be able to confirm their email when they put in the first email in the first test. So so this is how the confirm email works. Now when they put in their email in this first box, then they can be able to confirm the email by typing the email again in the second box. So you can also decide to remove that if you do not want that for the confirm email. Yeah, you can decide to remove that. And you can also decide to allow all domains, and you can decide to allow only specific domains for those forms. So you can decide that you do not want you only want people with Gmail, or you only want people with Outlook, or you only want people with a particular brand of email. You can add that in. And you can also decide to restrict certain domains that you do not want. So you can decide that you do not want to get Gmail domains, and that means you do not want people with Gmail accounts to be Gmail emails to be able to put in their email. That means you have to use their business email, and you can remove that if you want by just allowing all the domains. You can also add in an OTP. You can hide the field if you want. It is not going to show up in the form. And you can also disable the field so that it is going to show up, but they won't be able to fill in the form. You can also remove it if you want. You can mark as personal. You can encrypt it if you want, and you can use the QR code or the barcode for the mobile app. So when you click on save, your email has been saved. You can also drag in a website, and when you drag in your website field, this is a URL field, and you can also adjust it to whatever you want. You can add this and just say maybe something like adding your website, or maybe what is your company website. Just put in whatever it is that works for you. You can also decide to make this small. You can decide to make it medium. You can decide to make it large. You can also decide to add a placeholder text, an over text, and an initial value. So for the initial value, you can just add something like google.com, and it's going to show up on the page, but people can be able to adjust it or remove it and put whatever they want to put. You can also decide to make this mandatory. You can decide to put in no duplicate. You can also decide to hide the field if you want, or to disable the field. And when you are done, you click on save, and when you click on save, your field has been saved. So for the next one, we have the single line field. So for the single line field, the difference between the single line field and the multi-line field is that the multi-line fields allow them to add in a paragraph, while the single line field allow them to add in a text in a single line. So from the name single line, you can only add in on a single line. There is no break, there is no paragraph, there is no nothing in the single line. But for the multi-line, you can add in a full paragraph. So when you click on your single line field, you can decide to add this whatever you want. So let's change this to So for my single line field, I can say I want to add in job title. So when you click on that, you can add in whatever name you want to add, and you can decide to add in a placeholder text, and you can decide to add in a over text and an initial value. You can also decide to add in a character limit, and the character limit means that they cannot put in a text that have more than 255 characters. That means if they get to 255 characters, they won't be able to add in any more character. And the character just means text and both and signs and all of those things. So after that, you can decide to change this and just increase this to whatever you want. But as you can see, it is saying the maximum length is 255. So we take this back to 255. And you can also decide to make this mandatory. You can decide to hide the field, you can decide to disable the field, and when you are done, you can also decide that for the job title, you only want them to be able to put letters only, or you want them to put any character, or you want numbers and letters, whichever works for you. But we are going to use letter only since it is job title. So when you are done with all of the savings, you can click on save, and when you click on save, your job title field has been saved. And for the multi-line field, you can ask a question like tell us about your current sales challenges, and this will allow them to type in a paragraph so they can be able to tell you their challenges in details. So when you add this in here, and so when you ask for tell us about your sales challenges, you can add in your instruction, like you can say something like tell us about the problems you are facing in your sales process, or tell us about the problems you are facing with your sales pipeline, or whatever it is you want to add. You can also make this small or medium or large. You can add a placeholder text if you want. You can decide to add a over text and an initial value. So for the initial value, you can write a simple text and say and give an example of how it is going to look like. So you can add that in. They can also be able to remove those texts and just add whatever they want. So for this, you can decide that you want to make this in words or you want to make this in character. So that means we have a minimum of maybe one character and or maybe zero. Some people might not want to fill, so it says 0, and you can decide to make this 1000 marks, or we say 10,000 marks. So that means they can only be able to put 10,000 characters. And for the words, you can decide that we only want 500 words, and for the maximum we want 500 words, and for the minimum we have nothing. So you can also decide to show the word count so that they can be able to see what number of words they have used and the number they have not used. So you can show the word count. You can also make this mandatory if you want, and you can decide to hide this field if you do not want the field to show up in the form. You can decide to disable this field if you want, and when you disable the field, remember that they won't be able to fill in the field in the form. So you can take this off if you want them to fill the field, and you can remove the mandatory. So after putting all of these settings, you click on save, and when you click on save, your multi-line field has been saved. So the next one is the number. So we have number. You can decide to ask any question for the number. So you can decide to ask the number of employees, or you can decide to ask the number of years they have lasted in business. You can also decide to ask the number of kids they have, or you can decide to ask the number of courses they want to take if it's a student form. You can ask whatever number question you want to have. So for us, we'll be asking for the numbers of employees, and when you put it in here, you can change the title or the field label to number of employees. You can decide to hide the field label, and when you hide the field label, this field label is not going to show up in your form. And actually that is not necessary. We want it to show up, so we just unclick that, and you can decide to add in an instruction and just write something like please tell us the number of your employees, or you can tell us the number, or please tell us the number of your sales team. And you can also use the field size. We have the small, we have the medium, we have the large. You can pick whichever one works for you. You can add in a placeholder text also. You can add in an over text. You can add in an initial value. You can also decide that the numbers you want should be only 18 digits, and you can also decide to add values instead of digits, and whichever one works for you, you can add that. and you can decide to add the unit to this form. You can decide to add it as a prefix or a suffix, and when you click on this digit, it's going to ask you if you want to add this unit as a prefix or if you want to add it as a suffix. So let's say you have something like this is a B2B business, and you can just type in maybe B2B, and you can just add in a dash, and it's going to add in the number of employees in front. So it is going to be B2B 10 or B2B 12 or whatever it is they have put in. You can also decide to add it as a suffix if that works for you, but we're adding it as a prefix. So you can add in this suffix whichever way you want. You can make it mandatory, you can add in no duplicate. You can also allow negative value, so they can put a minus value if they want. You can also decide to include the number, the confirmation number. You can allow them to be able to confirm the number that they have put in, and after that you can decide to hide this field. You can decide to disable this field. So when you are done, you click on save, and when you click on save, this has been saved. And for the next one, we have the decimal, and the decimal allows you to be able to add a number field but in a decimal format. So you can ask for something like the percentage of something, or you can ask for the CGPA if it's a student form. So for them to be able to put in a decimal, you can also do that. So for this, we will be asking for the current conversion rate, and we can be able to add that in Zoho Forms. So when you come over here to the decimal, you can decide to change the name to this current conversion rate. You can decide to ask them questions like what is the current conversion rate of their country to USD, or you can also decide to make this small, medium, or large. You can add a placeholder text, you can add an over text. You can also decide that the separator should be a comma or should be a full stop or a period. Yeah, so you can decide to add it as a comma, or you can decide to add it as a full stop, whichever works for you. You can decide to round up to 2 decimal. So since we are asking for a conversion rate, it is going to be in 2 decimal. You can also decide to add in all of this decimal if you want, and you can set to add an initial value that is going to show up in the form. When they click on the form, they are going to be able to see the initial value, and they can erase it and put in whatever they want. You can also decide that you want the range of this number or these digits to be from 0 to 50. You can also decide to reduce this to 10, and since we are using a conversion rate, and it can be anything, so let's just say we want the maximum of 10, and you can decide to add in a unit. So you can decide to add a particular value as the prefix or as the suffix, whichever one works for you. And you can decide to make this mandatory, or you can make this no duplicate, or you can even allow negative value, and you can decide to include the decimal confirmation so that they can be able to confirm what they have put in. And when you are done, you can click on save, and when you click on save, your decimal field has been updated. So the next one is the formula field, but for the formula field, I want to come back to the formula field because I want to explain extensively what it means. We can also add in the currency field, and the currency field allow you to be able to ask them a particular amount question. So you can ask what is the sales for last year, or you can ask something like how much is their budget, or you can ask something like how much is their school fees. Whichever one works for you, you can add that as the question. So for currency, we'll be asking for their annual budget. So let's copy this and let's just paste it in here. So for the field, for the currency field, we can add in the annual CRM budget, and we can be able to ask them what their annual CRM budget is. You can decide to hide the field, you can make it small or large, add a placeholder text, and you can also decide to change in the currency if you want. So if you want to use a particular currency, you can decide to use USD, and you can decide to choose whatever currency from all over the world. So you can pick whatever currency works for you. I'm a Nigerian, so I am going to choose Naira. Where is Naira? Oh my god, Naira is not here. Oh, it's there. Naira is there. Yeah, so you can decide to choose Naira, and it's going to ask you if you want to add this as a code or if you want to add it as a symbol. So this is the symbol for Naira and this is the code for Naira. So let's say you want to use the code and you want to use the separator also, you can decide to make the separator a comma, or you can decide to make the separator a period. You can also decide to round to 2 decimal, or you can decide to round to 1 decimal. Since it's a currency, it can only be rounded to 2 decimal max. That's the maximum. And after this, we want to be able to add in the range, and we believe that if you're having 50 digits for your annual budget, yeah, that is actually a very big company. And I don't think anyone can have 50 digits as the maximum. So let's just reduce this to, let's say, 15. I'm thinking 15 is too much. Yeah, 15 is too much, but let's just keep it as 15, and you can decide that that is the maximum of digits they can put in for their annual budget. You can also make this mandatory. You can add in no duplicates, and you can also add in negative value. And actually, negative value cannot work here because that means they are in debt. So you can also decide to hide the field. You can decide to disable the field. You can make it personal if you want. And when you are done with all of those settings, you can click on save. And as you can see, my annual budget has been added, and it is adding the Naira code. So that means if they put any amount in here, it is going to be in Naira. You can decide to change this code to whatever country code you want to add, and that is fine. But the formula is just like a field where you can be able to calculate two things, or two or more things, actually two or more fields, not things, field. So you can decide to calculate the number of employee with another number field. So let's say we want to calculate the number of employee and the salary of each employee. So let's say we have the number of employee, then let's add salary field. Remember that if you want to add in a salary field is going to be a currency field. Okay, so we add in this in here, and we can say this should be salary. So for each employee, so you can decide to add this in as salary for each employee, and you click on save. Oh, it's in USD. Okay, so we can say that for the formula field, the formula field just allows you to calculate. It allows you to calculate two or more fields, and you do not need to start manually calculating the fields yourself. It is going to help them calculate it. So for instance, we can say we want to calculate the number of employee. We can just bring in the number of employee, multiply by the salary for each employee. So you can decide to do this for the product that you are selling. You can decide to pick in, you can decide to write the amount for each product and just put in an initial value, and you can be able to multiply the amount of those products to the number of products that they need. So let's say you are selling something like apples, or you're selling oranges. You can decide to write down the amount for each apples. So you can say, instead of using this salary for each employee, remember it's a currency field, you can say the amount of apples, then you can be able to multiply by the number of apples that they want. So this is how it works. So when you put in a number field, you can decide to use any of this function. Remember that this is multiplication, this is minus, this is addition, this is full stop, and this is division. Yeah, so this is division also. You can also say the number of employee multiplied by salary of each employee, and that is going to give us the total amount of salaries that is paid every month. So that can help them calculate that. You can also decide to use these functions here, and you can check in for the day difference and the month difference. So let's say we have a date field. Let me add in a date field quickly, so I can show you how it works. So let's say we want to add in this date field, and we want to say something like date of birth. So let's say this is date of birth. So you can add this field as a date field, and when people put in this field, you can come over here to your formula field. Where is my formula field? My god, it did not have. Okay, yeah, this is my formula field. Oh shit, this is my formula field. Oh, and I can decide to edit this formula over here, and I can say I want to use, instead of using multiplication or addition or any of these, I can decide to use this function. And what the function means is that I can calculate for a date field also. So I can add in a date of birth, and I can say the date of birth minus the current date. So I can add in something for the day difference, and the day difference is just going to calculate the difference between 2 days. So let's imagine that we have a conference and we want to calculate the time that they will be available to the dates of the conference. You can decide to do that. You can just pin this whichever way you want. You can add in a month difference also. You can add in a year difference, and for the year difference, the best scenario I can think of for year difference is to calculate their age. So let's say we have a birth, or remember we have date of birth in here, and they can be able to, when we click on the year difference, it is going to ask us for this first date field. Then we can say their date of birth minus the current date. And when you click on this system fields in here, you can see the current date, and we can put that in, and Zoho Forms is going to calculate their age by using this formula. You can also do the age. Remember we have the age, and they can be able to pick in a date field, and when we pick in this date field, it's going to show the date of birth. So we can also decide to use allow day count, and we can also decide to round up, we can decide to round down, you can round, however, you can round down and you can round up. You can use hour difference also, instead of using like the way we are using days difference, we can use hour difference. You can use minutes difference also. So minutes difference will just be a particular time field minus a time field, and just pin this whichever way you want, whichever one works for you. You can just do that, and when you are done, when you pick whatever it is you want to pick, so for this I'm just going to pick the number of employee multiplying by the salary for each employee. So that works for me. So I click on save, and I can also decide to add this in and just say something like salary expenses. So I can decide to add that in, and I can also decide to add in a separator if I want. For this formula field, I can decide to round it up in case it is bringing out decimal. I can say I want to round it up to just 2 decimal, and that is it. And I can click on save, and when I click on save, that has been saved as my formula field. Then the next one, we have the drop down field, and for the drop down field, the drop down field is just you creating a question field where people can be able to pick different options, and the drop down only allows one option. So for the drop down field, we can say the CRM you currently use, and we can add in all of this option. So for the CRM they currently use, we can say this, and we can decide to add in the instructions, like ask them what CRM are you currently using in your organization, and you can decide to make this a drop down or a radio, and we are going to see the difference in a minute. And you can decide to add in the field size as small, as medium, or whichever works for you. You can decide to add this choice manually, or you can decide to add in use a global list. But for you to use a global list, you have to create one in your settings, and when you click on that, you can just add manually. So we can add different options like Zoho, and we can add another option HubSpot, and we can add another option Pipe Drive. Yeah, so for the other option allow people to be able to put in another option that is currently not available in the options we have put in. So that means if they're picking orders, they can be able to type in their own CRM that they are currently using if the choice is not available in the options that we have given. So you can decide that you want this other option to be included in the choice, and you can also decide to sort this choice whether ascending, alphabetically ascending, or descending order. You can also decide to make this mandatory if that works for you. And when you're done with all of this saving, you click on save, and when you click on save, that has been saved. The radio field works exactly like the drop down field. The only difference is that the radio button is going to list all of your options in here. You can see all of your options. Why for drop down you cannot see it? You are only going to see it when you click on the select button. So for the radio button, you can also decide to ask in another question. So let's ask them, do they have a CRM do they have a sales team, or do they have a CRM team, whichever one works. So you can ask them this question: do they have a CRM team? And you can be able to pick radio or drop down, and you can also decide that you want this to be 2 column, or you want this to be 3 column. So that means your option is going to be, if it is 2 column, it is going to be side by side in 2 places, and if it is 3 column, it's going to be side by side in 3 places. And you can also decide that you only want your column to be side by side, and you can decide to add an overtext, and you can decide to add in your option: do they have a sales team? So you can say yes, or you can say no, or you can say maybe. And you can also decide to add the order field if you want. The order choice. The order choice will allow them to be able to put in their own option. You can also decide to include the choice availability. So what the choice availability mean is that they can be able to pick, you can be able to allocate a slot for all of this option. So let's say we only want 50 people to pick yes, and we want 50 people to pick no, and we want 10 people to pick maybe. So we can be, this actually works best if you are using something like you have products that you are selling, and you want to ask people the product that they're interested in, and you have limited supply of those products. So you can be able to add those slots in here so that people can be able to pick, and they can see the available options, the available numbers for each product. You know how you want to do your shopping and they say something like 5 units left, yeah, so it's available here also. So when it's saying that if the total number is reached, what do you want to do with the choice? You can decide to disable this choice, or you can decide to hide the choice. So if you are hiding it, that means if the 50 slots has been picked, then this field is not going to show up in here. So let's say you have different products that you are selling. You have apple, you have orange, and you have mango. You can decide to allocate this slot, and if 50 people pick apple already, you can decide to hide the choice, or you can decide to disable this choice, whichever one works for you. You can also decide to show the remaining quantity, so that means if people are picking, and they can be able to see what quantity remains. So we can say something like 49 remaining, or we can say 50 remaining, and you can also decide to even change this remaining to something like 49 left, or 50 left, or whatever it is you want to add. And for this option, remember that we cannot use the other option for the choice availability. So when you are done, you click on done, and that is going to be saved. You can also edit the choice availability you just added, or you can decide to remove it if that works for you. And for the choice, you can decide to sort the choice ascending or descending. You can make it mandatory, and you can do all of these. And when you pick all of these settings, you can click on save. And when you click on save, your field has been updated. We can also have in a checkbox, so you can decide to edit this checkbox to whatever you want, and you can say something like you can use the same question. Let's use the same question for this, and we want to say yes for this, and we want to say no for this, and we want to say maybe for this. And you can decide to add the other option if that works for you. You can also decide to add in a choice limit. For the choice limit, you can decide that you only want them to be able to pick a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 2. So that means they can pick more than one option for the radio. They can pick more than one option for the checkbox option. So you can decide that you want them to be able to pick the maximum of 3 and a minimum of 1. So that means they must pick something if you are choosing a minimum of 1, or you can just use 0 if you do not want them to put anything. Oh yeah, it's 1, sorry. So it's 1. So you can also configure your choice availability like we did for radio field. You can try to sort this, you can add this as mandatory, and you can click on save. And when you click on save, that has been saved. You can also the next one, you can decide to add image choices. And now for image choices, it's like multiple choice, but it is in an image format. You can add image, and you can add the label, and you can add the value. So let's say we want to ask them for their type of CRM, or let's say let me see. Yeah, so let's say we want to ask them what CRM they are using, or want to ask them what CRM they have used before. We can decide to upload the logo of different CRM so they can pick the CRM that they have used. So let's try that. So let me upload some logos here. Okay, so I want to add the HubSpot logo, so I'm just going to add this in, and I'm going to add in another option. I'm going to click on upload, and let me see if I can get another CRM. So let's add Pipedrive. I'm just going to add Pipedrive, and I'm going to add, let me add one more. Let me add GUI level, and I should have Zoho somewhere. Where is Zoho logo? Okay, so I have found my Zoho CRM logo, so I just click on open, and now I have 4 options of CRM, and I can decide to add in the name for each of these. So I can say this is HubSpot, this is Pipedrive, and this is GUI level, and this is Zoho CRM. And I can also decide to add in a value like 1, like 2, like 3, and like 4. So now this is the image option, and you can also decide to choose the choice availability. Remember how we set that up? We can have maybe 10 slots for HubSpot, or 10 slots for Pipedrive, or 10 slots for Zoho CRM, which also you can just add that in for the configuration. You can also decide that you want to use a checkbox instead of radio, or you can decide to use only images. So if you are using only images, that means they can only pick images, and there is no need for using radio. So after you are done with all of this, you want to click on save, and that is going to save your image choice field. And let's see how that looks like. And as you can see, this is how it looks like, but we can also change this label name. So let's change this label name to something like which CRM. So let's say something like which CRM I've used before, and they can be able to pick whichever option works for them. You can also decide that you want the size of the images to be small, or you want it to be medium or large, whichever works for you. You can also say that the arrangement should be side by side, or to be 3 column, or to be 2 column, whichever works for you. Or you can say you want it side by side. You can also decide to show the image label, the label we added for each images HubSpot. And you remember how we added a name. You can decide to show that, and you can decide to allow zoom on link, on click, sorry. You can also decide to show the assigned numeric value that we've added. Remember we added 1, 2, 3, 4. We can decide to show that value, or we can decide not to show it. You can decide to make this mandatory if you want, and you click on save. And when you click on save, it is going to update your field for you. And when people come into this form and you ask them which CRM have you used before, they can be able to pick whatever CRM they have used before. And when you do that, you can move to the next option. So after adding the image choices, the next one is the matrix choices. So I've already taken off the image choice, so let's add in the matrix choices. So how these matrix choices work is that You can be able to add in various questions and just add them in as a matrix choice. So when you drag in the first one, like for instance, let's take a look at this radio choices, and as you can see, we can be able to add in a question. So for instance, we already asked the CRM they currently use, and we can ask them to rate the current CRM they are using. So we can say for the current CRM you are using, the first question can be how easy it is for you to use the CRM. So we can say ease of use, or we can say the automation process, or the third question can be the automation process. So the first answer can be very good, or the second answer can be medium, or the last answer can be very bad. So whichever one works for you, you can just set this up and just try to tweak it whichever way works for you. The same thing applies for the checkbox, and the checkbox also goes with that format. You can also ask questions for the checkbox. You can ask them something like, how was your finances for the first quarter? This can be for the first quarter, or for the second quarter, or for the third quarter. Then you can say the answer can be your finances was very good, or the extreme answer can be very bad, and they can pick in whichever one works for them. So this is actually good if you want to create a survey. These matrix choices will allow you to be able to create different questions and put in different answers for the different questions. So the next one, you can also use the drop down, and the drop down is going to allow you to set up the question and also add the answers as a drop down. The next one is also the text box, and the text box actually allows you to add in the question, and people will be able to put in their answer themselves. So the first question can be, how is your finances this month or this year? Or you can say, how is your finances the first quarter, the second quarter of the year, and the third quarter of the year? And they can be able to write whatever how their finances is for each of this. Then we can also determine to add in a number, a metric choice. You can decide to say you can decide to ask them the number of employees for the first quarter, for the second quarter, and the third quarter, and you can decide to add this maybe last year, this year, or next year. So they can be able to write in the number for the number of the employee. And the next one is for the currency. So for the currency, we can say something like, how much was your expenses, how much was your sales last year, how much was your revenue last year. So this can be sales, revenue, this can be expenses, and this can be profit. So we can say the first answer can be this year, and the second answer can be last year, and the third answer can be next year. That is how to set up the matrix choices, and you can pick whichever one works for you and just set it up. You can naturally be very creative with however you want this to be. So let's set up the currency one, and let's see how we can do that. So we can ask questions like company revenue. So since it's a currency menu, we can only pick currency, and we can also add in the questions we want to ask. So let's say the first question can be their sales revenue, and the next one can be their expenses, while the last one can be their profit. So the sales revenue and the profit and the expenses. So we can also add in, this can be last year, and this can be this year, and this can be next year. Let's say next year. So after adding that, you can also decide to add in another option if you want, and you can remove this if you want. You can also modify the column width, and that means you can adjust the size to whatever works for you. So let's just leave this way, and you click on done, and you can also import predefined answers if you want. You can decide to hide this field, or you can decide to disable this field. And when you are done, you click on save, and when you click on save, this field has been saved. The next one also on our list is the date and time. You can decide to drag in a date like the date of birth I created before. You can decide to add in dates like consultation dates, like meeting dates, just write whatever you want, and you can set up the settings like the way we discussed for date of birth. And when you are done, you can also drag in time. So for time, you can decide to ask them the available time, the demo time, or you can ask them for what time they want their consultation to be, or what time they want the meeting to be. You can say demo time. And for the time, you can choose to make the time 12 hours time format, or you can also make the meeting intervals to be maybe 10, 15, or 30. And that means how they can pick minutes 1 to 60. So if it is 1, you can pick it 1 to 60. That means 1 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if it is an interval of 5, that means it will be like 5, 10, 15, 20. And if it's an interval of 10, it is 10, 20, 30. Yeah, so that's how it works. It can be an interval of 15 also. So let's just pick 10. We can also decide to add in an initial value, and we can say the initial value can be 10 a.m. So let's add in 10 a.m. Let's say 10, then 10 a.m. And you can decide to reset this if you want. And you can decide to set this at the autofill time of response. The initial value of this field can be the time of the response. That means the time that you are submitting this form. So you can also autofill this if you want. You can make this mandatory, and you can make this no duplicate. And when you are done, you can click on save. And when you click on save, your date field, your time field has been updated. Then for your date and time, you can also set up your date and time in such a way that when people come into this form, they can be able to add in a particular date and time. So let's add in a date and a time. So when you click on this, you click on the settings, and it is going to ask you to change the name if you want. So let's add this as meeting date and time. So meeting date and time. Okay. So we can decide to hide this field, and we can decide to add in an instruction, and we can also decide to add in a placeholder text, and we can decide to add in an over text. And remember the time format, you can do this here also. You can also decide to say, you know what, we want to autofill the date and the time of the response as the initial value. You can also decide that your week starts on Monday instead of Sunday, and you can decide to add in all the days of the week. But since it's a meeting menu, or since it is a meeting field, we do not want to add weekends because we do not work on weekends. And we can add in all time, or we can decide that, you know what, we do not want all time, we only want to choose a time range. So that means for each days, we can be able to add in a time range. So we can say we want it from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or we can say we want it from 7 a.m. from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. or we can say 11 a.m. So is that we use 9 to 5, or we just remove 9 to 5 and use 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. and we can also add in the afternoon time to be, maybe let's use 12 p.m. Yeah, 12 p.m. Let's say 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Yeah. So that means there's a lunch break between this, and when you are done, you can click on done, and that will be added. You can also decide to set this field as mandatory, or you can also use no duplicate. When you are done and you made all of the settings, you can click on save. And the next one to do is for the month and the year. So for the month and the year, we can decide to drag in a date, and we can just add this month and year, and we can name it contract renewal month, and let's just add that in. So we can add this as contract renewal month, and we can decide to add in instruction and add in an initial value, or we can use the autofill for the month and the year. So this is going to autofill the month and the year of response. For instance, if I'm filling this form this month, it is going to be in August. sorry, we're in September, so it's going to be September 2025. So that means it is going to autofill the month and the year. So we can also decide to display all of the all the months of the year, or we can decide to just display a few of them, and we can also decide to allow some months and allow some years. We can say we only want past months, or we say we only want future months. And since it is a renewal date, it should be in future. And you can also decide to include the particular dates and months of the year. You can also decide to make this mandatory. You can decide to show the field, and you can also make all of the settings, and you can click on save. And when you click on save, your month year field has been saved, and people can then be able to pick the month and the year for this particular field. So the next field to add now is for the file upload, and for the file upload we can be able to drag in this file and we can put it over. And for file upload, we can say we want them to upload their current work CRM workflow, or we can tell them to upload maybe their contract, or we can tell them to upload whatever it is we want to upload. So let's use this as current CRM workflow. Sorry. And we can also add in instructions if we want. We can add in the overtext. We can also say that, you know what, we only want to accept PDF for this file, or we only want to accept documents or TXT file. We can also decide that we want to increase the upload limit so that people can be able to upload more than one file, and we can increase the upload limit to about 5. I think 5 is the highest. Yes, 5 is the highest. We can also say that we want the maximum of this the maximum file size to be 20 MB, and you should see that if I try to increase this, it's going to tell me that the maximum they can accept is 20 MB, and that is fine. So we just have to reduce this to 20 MB. But it will be better for you to be able to add this in your instruction, that the maximum file upload is 20 MB maximum. You can also decide to add in a file name. So let's say that for every of the file that is coming in for this CRM workflow PDF, we want to be able to name this file. So that means you can click on all of those fields that are in here, and you can name the file according to this. So you can decide to add in the title, and you can decide to add in the name, and you can decide to add in the last name, and you can include something like so you can decide to include something like CRM workflow PDF. So this will help you to be able to track in wherever these files are coming from. So in case you will be bringing the files into your Zoho CRM, or you'll be bringing the files into your Zoho form already, but you just want to make sure you are naming all of those files accordingly. So this will help you to name the files according to their name and their last name, and it's going to add in the CRM workflow PDF. So when you are done, you want to click on mandatory. If you want it mandatory, you can also hide or disable the field. And when you are done with all of the settings, you click on save. And when you click on save, your file upload field has been added. Then the next one is for the image upload. And for the image upload, you want to drag in your image upload and put it in here. Click on the settings, and you can decide to change the settings to whatever you want. So let's use something like upload your company logo. We want them to be able to upload their company logo, so we just change the file label. We add in whatever instruction we want, and we can also increase this file upload limit to 5. We can also set this as 20, and we can enable compression limits if we want, so we can allow them to compress the file. And you remember the file name also, you can do the same thing like we did for the PDF upload. And let's just add in first name and last name this time, and let's say something like let's add in something like company logo. So that means the first name and the last name and then the company logo. So this is going to add in this file name for each of the company logo that is coming in, and it's going to add in the first name of the person and the last name of the person, and it's going to add in the company logo. Remember that we are doing this so that we can be able to track each file that is coming in to our Zoho form. We can also decide that, you know what, I do not want to accept some types of image types, so you can just pick whatever type you want to accept. If it's JPEG you only want to accept, you can click on that, and you can also click on PNG, you can click on the web format, or you can click on GIF. You can use whichever one works for you, or you can just say, you know what, I want to select all of this and just select it, or you can just say you want all image type. You can also decide to hide this field and make it mandatory. You can also use the photo gallery, and you can decide to alternate it, or you can use the timer. And you can also decide to add in the camera, so people can be able to take picture of an image, or they can be able to snap whatever it is they want to snap and just add it as the file upload. And you can also enable compression, and you can also include the camera modes. You can allow them switch between both camera modes, and you can also decide to add in the address, the longitude and latitude, and the date time to these images. And just know that this is actually not really compulsory, but you can just add that if you want. And you can click on save, and when you click on save, your image upload field has been added. Then the next thing you want to do is to add in the audio and the video upload. So for the video and the audio upload, you can allow people to be able to record something and upload it into that form. So let's say we want to allow them to sing a song, you can do that and just allow them to attach that audio file into the form. You can also allow them to record something like testimonial, or you can allow them record a short clip about their company, and they can be able to upload that video file. So let's say we are choosing video, and you can go ahead and edit this, and you can give in instructions if you want, and with it you can change the media type to audio if you want, or you can change it to video, or you can leave it as video. Sorry, you can also decide to change the upload limits to 5, so that means they can be able to upload up to 5 files. You can also decide to change the maximum file size if you want, so that means they can be able to upload up to 20 MB video files. So you can also decide to add in the file name, remember the first name and the last name, and you can say, you know what, I do not want to accept certain types of video types. You can just pick the custom ones you want to accept, and you can decide that you only want to accept in MP4, or you can decide to accept all of them. You can also decide to add this as mandatory field, and you can also allow them to take a picture. They can use the rear camera, or they can use the front camera, and they can also use their media gallery. That means they can upload the file from their media gallery, and they can also switch between the cameras. They can switch between the front camera and the back camera, whichever one works for them. And after you are done with all of the settings, you want to click on save, and when you click on save, your field has been added. So the next field we want to add now is for the one for rating. Now for rating, we can allow them to put in the rating they want to give us, or they want to give our company. We can say something like rate your CRM satisfaction level, and you can decide to add in the instructions. Also, you can decide to use numbers instead of symbols. Symbols are actually very popular, but you can decide to pick numbers. So that means they can pick from the scale of 1 to 5, and they can pick whatever number fits their satisfaction level. You can also decide that, you know what, we don't want to use 5, we want to use 10. And we can also decide that this symbol, we don't want to use star like it's commonly used. We can use another thing like maybe fire emoji, or we can pick any of this emoji in here. So you can also decide to add in an overtext, or you can decide to change this count back to 10, back to 5, and you can even use 7. You can use whatever you want. So you are saying that on a scale of 1 to 5, how is your satisfaction level, or on a scale of 1 to 10, how is your satisfaction level. So just switch this up to whatever you want, and you can make this mandatory, and you can click on save when you are done. And the next one is for the slider. So the slider is almost like the rating, but there is something different. So let's see what's different between both of them. So you know how we can be able to track their satisfaction level also? We can do it for slider, but slider is going to be like on a range of 1 to 100, and it's going to allow them to be able to drag this blue elements around whatever number is the satisfaction level. You can decide to make this small or make it medium or make it large. You can also decide to add in an initial value if you want. So you can decide to add in a step value. So for the step value, you can decide that you want it to be in 10 intervals. That means if 0 is the minimum and 100 is the maximum, and we're having 10 intervals, that is going to be 10, 20, 30, 40. Or we can decide that, you know what, we want it 1. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 200. So they can pick a number from 1 to 100, and it is going to be in one interval. So you can decide to show the step values if you want, or you can decide to show the step pointers if you want, and you can decide to show the minimum and the maximum label. So instead of using minimum and maximum, you can say very good or you can say very bad. So the minimum will be very bad, and while the maximum will be very good. And we can decide to set this as mandatory, and we can decide to hide this field or disable this field. And when you're done, you click on save, and this scale has been saved. And as you can see, we have very bad for 0 and we have very good for 100. So we can move to the next one, and the next one is going to be our description field. And for the description field, we can be able to write something like a description, and we can just describe we can just add in a description so people can be able to see it. Let's say we are at a point in our form and we want to add in a warning, or we are at the point of our form and we want to just give them a little bit of context before they move to the next part of the form. Then we can add the description. So you can type in whatever description you want to add in here and just add it in. So it's just going to be like a block of text on that page. And when you are done, you click on done. And when you click on done, your description will be added. As you can see, it is adding this add content to description. So let's change this add content and let's change it to something else, and let's use this, and we can say please provide details so we can recommend the right CRM, or you can add in whatever text you want to add. And when you click on save, it is going to save this, and as you can see this text in here. So we can also add the next one, which is to the audio and the video embed. So for the audio and the video embed, please do not mistake this audio and video embed with this. They are actually two different things. The audio and the video here is different from this. This one is to allow people to upload the audio or the video, and while this one is to allow you yourself to be able to upload your video or audio to this form. So let's say you have an audio or you have a song you want to recommend to these people on this form. You can decide to add in an audio, and you can decide to add in an audio from Apple Music, from YouTube Music, or from Amazon Music, whichever one works for you. And you can decide to just add in the link here, or you can decide that, you know what, I want to add in a video for you guys and I want you guys to watch the video on the form. You can just add a link to the video and people can be able to see the video on the form. So let me grab a link from my YouTube channel. Okay, so I've grabbed the link and I will just paste the link in here, and when I paste the link, I'm going to click on done, and my video has been embedded. So now you can also decide to adjust this whichever way you want. You can make this, you can add in an instruction, and the type of embed is video, that's true, and you can see the video URL here. You can change it if you want and add in another video. You can also decide that you want this to align to the left or align to the right, and you can make this landscape or you can make this portrait, and you can decide to increase the width and increase the height. So we can decide to say, you know what, I want to increase this to 120, and let's see how that looks like. Oh, the allowed width is from 30 to 100. So can I say 100 then? I've changed that to 100, and we can add it in as portrait, and we can add it as landscape. We can also put this in the middle if we want. And when you're done, you click on save. And when you click on save, your video has been adjusted. Remember that we are changing the width to 100, and that is why it's expanded. So the next one now is going to be for unique ID. So for unique ID, we have two types of IDs actually, and we have unique ID and we have random ID. I'm going to explain their difference in a minute. So for unique ID, the way unique ID works is that, let me drag it in here so I can show you. And for unique ID, you can say that you want to be able to add in an ID to each person that is coming to your Zoho form. So you can say that this unique ID should start from 101, and we want to add in a prefix. So since they are leads, we can say something like L. Let's use the capital letter L, and we can put in a dash, and we can say that the first unique ID will be L-101, while the second contact will be L-102. Yeah, so it is a unique ID that will be assigned as the leads are coming in. You can also decide to add in a suffix if you want. So for the suffix, you can say you want to add in something like 2025, and that will be L101 2025, and the next one will be L-101 2020, 102 2025. So it's going to be for each contact that is coming in, the unique ID will be assigned to it. And when you are done with these settings however you want it, you can click on done. And also, if you don't want to use any of this, you don't want to use L or whatever letter you want to use, you can use your fields that you have created. You can say that you want to check in for the title, just add in the title as the suffix, or add in the title as the prefix, whichever way you want. And when you are done, you click on done, and this is going to add your unique ID. And the next one, which is your random ID, random ID is actually quite different from unique ID in such a way that random ID is random. We have no control over random ID actually. Zoho Forms will be the one to just put in the random ID itself. We have no control over it, but we can say that even though we do not have control over how this is going to be set up, we can say we only want numbers, or we only want letters, or we want letters and numbers, and we can say that the length we want for this random ID to be 6 or 5, or you can use 4, and you can restrict the ID repetition. So that means that even though we cannot determine how this is going to be set up, we can say we want letters and numbers, and we want the length of this ID to be 5 digits or 5 characters. So when you are done with all of the settings, you click on save, and your random ID has been added. And the next one, which is terms and condition. Terms and condition, you can add in a term and condition, and you can just write in whatever terms and condition you want in this box. So let's click on the settings here, and you can change this terms and conditions to something else. You can say please accept our privacy policy, or you can say please accept our terms and condition. And the terms, you can write in the terms over here and decide to edit these terms to whatever you want. Just write in the terms, and when you're done, you click on done. And you can also decide to edit this declaration, and the declaration will be the one where it's showing the checkbox where they can click on the one that says I accept the terms and condition. You can change this to whatever you want by saying that I accept the CRM consultation rules, or I accept the school rules, or I accept the coaching institute rules is fit for your business. Then when you're done, you click on done, and you want the status of contents to be agreed. You can also click on the mandatory field if you want it to be mandatory, and you can click on save when you are done, and your terms and condition field has been created. If you go over to the next one, which is signature, you can drag in signature in here, and when you click on your signature and you click on the settings here, you are going to see that you can edit this. You can edit it to whatever you want and say maybe signature of the parent, or signature of the student, or guardian signature, or just write in whatever you want, or signature of the client. And you can say that you want it mandatory, and you can also decide to add in a file name. Remember that the file name is just to track the signature that will be brought in. So we can decide that we want to add in the first name, and we want to add in the last name, and we want to add in signature. So let's say we want to name this signature. Decide to add in signature, and we can just write in what we want the field name to be. And when you are done, you click on save, and this signature field has been saved, and people can be able to write and draw in their signature in here. And the next one after signature is the decision box, and we can decide to drag in this decision box and bring it in here. And the decision box looks similar to the terms and condition. And the decision box, you can just add in whatever you want to name this decision. So let's say we want to name this subscribe me to update. So you come over here and you can label this subscribe me to update. You can add in instruction, and the initial state can be checked, and you can state what will be displayed when they check this checkbox, or you can display what you want when they uncheck. You can say when they check, you want to say subscribed, or when they uncheck this, you want to say maybe please accept this to get updates from us. You can just twist it whichever way you want. You can also add in the mandatory field, the mandatory checkbox, and when you're done you click on save, and that has been saved. So after the decision box, you can also decide to add in a section. So you know how we can add in a section, and we can also add in a, remember that we can add in a description. Where's my description? Yeah, so we can add in a description here, and we can just name this description and just say want to name this as CRM needs, or we can name this yeah. So we can decide to name this your CRM needs, and when you can also click on instructions to add the instructions for this section, and when you're done you can click on save, and this section has been added. So as you can see, a new section called CRM needs have been added. You can also decide to add in a page break. So a page break is going to break your page into 2 pages. So when you add in a page break here, this the up part is going to be the one from all the first question down to this question, and it added in a page 2. So you can decide that you want the first page to be company info, and the next page to be your CRM needs. So you can decide that you want the page title to show in the navigation bar, or you want the page title to show in pages, or you want it to show in none. So let's choose the navigation bar, and we can also say that we want to pick a navigation option, or you can choose none, and you can pick the different styles you can use. You can use this style here, or you can use this, whichever works for you, but I think I like this. So this is going to be the style for the navigation button. And for the feed validation, you can pick whether you want to validate the feed before moving to the next page, or you want this to be on the final submission. So what the feed validation means is that, okay, so we have 2 pages, right? The company info and the other page, which is your CRM needs. We can decide that before we can move to the second page, which is your CRM needs, we want to validate all of these fields in here. And what does it mean to validate the field in the first page? It means that if there is any field that is compulsory, or if there's any field that is not imputed very well, Zoho Forms will allow you to correct all of those things first before you can move to the next page. And it's actually good because it will help you see that each pages are done before you can hit the final submission. So you can also decide that, we do not want to do that for each pages. We can do that on final submission. So when your contact or people coming to this form want to click on the final submit button, it is going to then take them back to all the pages that have some issues with the form, or maybe the compulsory fields, or maybe the mistakes in each pages, that can also be done. We can also decide to add in the other options, which is we can display the page number. So to display the page number, you can decide to add in 1 or 2 for this page number. So it's going to display the page number, and then you can click on save. And when you click on save, your page as your page break has been updated. You can also decide that you want to create a sub form for this form. So let's go down in here and let's add in a sub form. So how does a sub form work? A sub form is just like a mini form where you can add different elements. So let's say something like you want to add in team members into this form. You want people to be able to add team members, or you want people to be able to add in people on their team, or you want people to be able to add in let's say you want people to be able to add the employees. Then you can create this, and when you click on this, it is going to add this sub form, and you can edit the sub form. So to edit the sub form, you can say that for the sub form, we want to accept the names of each team members, or we want to accept the phone of each team members, or we want to accept the emails of each team members also. So you can also set up this the setting of this form, and you can just add in this button, and you can say that for the sub form you can change the field label. So we can change the team label to something like add so we can change it to add multiple team members, and we can say we want it to be inline or to be pop-up, or we can also decide that you can also decide you want to adjust the width of this. So let's say so that is going to adjust the width of each field. And you can also decide that we want the entry limits to be 0 and 5. So there is a minimum of 0 and there is a maximum of 5. So that means we can only put up to 5 team members. You can also decide to increase that if you want, and you can also decide to use any of this. Like for instance, you can decide to use the number of employees. So now that we want to add team members, you can say that the maximum of the team members should be the number of employees that they have. And that means that the maximum numbers of subforms they can create is the maximum of number of employees that they have. You can also decide to use any of other number fields that you have in here, and you can decide that you do not want duplication of fields, and that means we do not want duplication of emails. And that is because if there's a duplication of emails, then that means that team member has been created already. So when you are done, you can also choose phone if you want, and when you are done, you click on save. And when the next one will be to add a entry label. So if you want to, you can say something like add team members, or you can say something like add team members. You can say something like add the employee. Just edit this is whatever you want. And we can say the sub form placement can be at the center or at the left, or whichever one works for you. You can say you want to show the serial number, like number 1, number 2, and you can decide to hide the field and disable this field. So you can click on save when you are done, and when you click on save, that has been saved. The next one is your Zoho CRM field, and when you drag in Zoho CRM, and this field is actually very important. You can decide that, we want to map this into contact. So when people submit this form, it goes into the contact module. You can also decide to select the layouts you want, and you can decide to use a search type. A search type means that you want to be able to search each contact according to a field. And the most common field we use is the email, because the email is like the unique field for every lead. So you can decide that you want to search each contact with the email, and you can also say that you want to map these fields to pre-fill the form. So here is how this works. If we map all of these contacts to each other, and if someone wants to submit that form, and if they put in their emails, it will generate the other fields. That is if that contact is already in our Zoho CRM account already. So if it is an existing contact in Zoho CRM and they put in their email, it is going to pre-fill that form with the details available in Zoho CRM. And that is very, very good, because if we have those details in Zoho CRM already and we pre-fill the form, it is going to help the contact coming in to be able to adjust whatever they want to adjust. And when they click on submit, it is going to go back into Zoho CRM to adjust all the data that the contact is putting in again. Remember that the form we are creating in here, these fields must have been created in Zoho CRM already. So all these fields that we have been adding right from the beginning, all these fields must have been created in Zoho CRM for us to be able to map this out. So if you have not created all the fields on your form into Zoho CRM, you want to do that before you move on. So when you click on the first name here, then it's going to be the first name here also, and you can click on add. Then let's add in the last name here, then last name here. Then we can also add in the email. So remember to put in the email also, and you can also put in the phone here and phone here. You can decide to map all of this so that the preview value will be showing up in Zoho Forms when these contacts come into Zoho Forms. When you are done, you click on save, and that field has been saved. Another thing to note is that if you click on the settings field, it is better to hide this field, because we do not want the contact to see it. It should be a backend field. And the next one is the payments. So for the payments field, you can decide that you want to be able to collect money for training or money for consultation, and you can just add the field name in here, like pay $50 for booking consultation fee, and people can be able to pay on that form. That is actually amazing. So it's like to be like, if you're creating a payment form and you want people to be able to pay for whatever service or whatever consultation they want to book or whatever training they want to book, they can pay on that form. But the thing is that you need to configure this payment gateway before you can move on. You can configure Stripe or you can configure PayPal, but I do not have any of these, so I'm just going to skip this. And you can click on process approval and workflows. And when you're done, you can click on save. And because my payment has not been integrated, it is not going to save. And let's just cancel this. Yes. Wow, that is the end of all the menus by the left hand side. And please do not forget to go back to watch this particular video or this particular section again, because I know it can be confusing. That each of these fields are actually important, and you will be able to use them if you understand how to use each field.